Hello and welcome to the first module from the e-learning from MyThesis Academy. My name is Dr. Friederike Jurt. I'm the founder of MyThesis Academy, and it's my pleasure to guide you step by step on your thesis writing journey and to accompany you to complete your thesis until the final moment of your thesis defense step by step. In this e-learning, I would like to provide you with several exercises with information all around your thesis and all around the different stages of thesis writing. I would like to accompany you when you develop your theoretical chapters, when you prepare your practical research and conduct your research. Maybe you want to go on a fieldwork, and I also will help you through all the process of your academic writing, of the stage, of the analysis and the discussion, and also the editing and proofreading, and well, until the moment where you reach at the final thesis defense. To start up, I like to dedicate this first module to the question of what is a thesis. So, as you can see, the model is divided into three main parts. So we will start with the question, what is a thesis? Then we will get over to several good reasons why it is worth the pain to write a thesis, even if it is a lot of work. But as you will see, there are some skills and some abilities that you will achieve and that you will get and learn for a lifetime. These skills are not just very valuable for the moment when you write your thesis, or if you are in the middle of your study and you want to improve. But there are also some qualities and some abilities that will be very helpful for your future career. Then I would like to get a little bit deeper into the question of how to prepare your thesis. So, how do you start to write your thesis? There are some essential tasks and some challenges that you need to succeed before you really start to work on the real thesis. So, let's get started with the first part, which is all around the thesis, or the question of what is a thesis. We will start with a little introduction and getting from the origin of the thesis to the academic signification. Then we will arrive step by step to the core. So I want to present the main thesis stages that you will pass, and then we will get to the part where I explain the chapters and also the different sections. So I will start with an overview of the overall structure and explain all the different chapters and sections that are part of the thesis writing process. And we will also have a look on the inner structure, so of the tasks and the content of every chapter and section. Then, as the final moment of this class, I like to concentrate on the similarities and the differences of the thesis types. So what differs a bachelor's thesis from a master thesis? And what is different if you want to write a Ph.D. thesis? So are there similarities? Yes, of course there are. but there are also some differences and some advanced challenges that you have to master when you get from a bachelor thesis to a master thesis, and if you then want to write a PhD thesis. To warm a little bit up, I like to say some words on the origin. So let's get started with the term thesis itself. The origin is from the Greek thesis, which means something to put forth, referring to an intellectual proposition. The first definition that we know today was given by the famous Greek philosopher Aristotle, that you probably know, and how the way he puts it is the following. A thesis is a supposition of some eminent philosopher that conflicts with the general opinion. For to take notice when any ordinary person expresses views contrary to man's usual opinions would be silly. Well, this is from the works of Aristotle, and this is the way in which Aristotle defines the term thesis. This is what a thesis means for him. From Greek, it was transmitted into Latin, and here we have two different meanings. First, it can be a general question or an abstract question, but it can also be a proposition. In Latin, we also find the word dissertation, which means discussion in the first way. Well, if we look a little bit closer to the history of the term, then we will find the word thesis and the first recording of this word in 1350, 1400. Then in 1579, it was introduced with the meaning of a proposition to be discussed and defended. So this is basically already the way that we take when we write our academic thesis. Because, well, you will prepare your thesis, your proposition, and then you will discuss your findings, but you also will discuss and defend it in front of a committee and your audience. In the 17th century, here is the moment where we find the thesis with the meaning of a dissertation to achieve an academic degree. To put it together and to get ahead with our definition and with the origin and the core of a thesis, the Cambridge Dictionary puts it like that. The thesis means or can mean a main idea, an opinion, or the theory of a speaker or writer who then attempts to prove it. So another time, an idea or a proposition that then has to be proved and defended. Altogether, a thesis can mean a proposition, an arrangement, a placement, a sitting, or a conclusion. This is also what I found when I searched for several synonyms. And the main explanation is a statement presenting claims which will be supported by strong arguments, aiming to convince or to persuade from a specific opinion or point of view. So this is just a short introduction to warm up and to get a little bit familiar with the origin of the word thesis. Now we will get over to the academic definition. So this is basically the most interesting for us. Here I took a quote from the Cambridge Academic Content Dictionary, and they put it like that. A thesis is a piece of writing involving the original study of a subject, especially for a college or university degree, or a long piece of writing on a particular subject, especially one that is done for a higher college or university degree. So this would be the PhD thesis. Well, now we will get over to a question. You are at the final moment of a degree, of your study. So probably you already finished everything that you had to complete before. You finished all classes, all modules, all examinations and term papers. And what is left? Your thesis. So the students have to submit a bachelor thesis in graduation and a master thesis in post-graduation. And finally, as a researcher and a future academic, also a doctorate thesis, the PhD thesis. Well, yes, it is necessary. If you are here, then you probably already know it. You cannot finish a degree without handing in your thesis. So yes, it is not optional, but you have to hand it in and to submit it to obtain your academic degree. Well, now I like to get over to some characteristics of a thesis and also to the question of what is the point of start. Well, first of all, you have to know that a thesis, it does not matter if it is a bachelor thesis, a master thesis, or a PhD thesis, is a long-term work. So, as such, it takes some months or even some years in case of a PhD thesis. In this time, you have to deal with all the questions of research and of academic writing. You have to go through different stages and working periods. And your point of start is an original research idea, which is normally inspired and developed from a specific gap of research that you detected in your field of interest. So, to get a little bit deeper into the structure of a thesis, I first like to present the 4 main stages. So the overall structure of the stages that you will go through when you write a thesis. First, the point of start that we discussed is the original idea that can be inspired by the literature or also by, well, also by something, some question from that you picked up in another situation. It is not important if you got your topic from the literature or if you got inspired in another way, but it generally starts with an original idea. Then follows all the process of preparation. We will have a look what this means. And after the preparation of the conception and also of the theoretical fundament, you will get over to the next stage, which is the practical research. So where you will get from the theory into practice. Then after generating all your data, you will go over through the analysis of your research results, and you will get into the phase of academic writing. This is followed by the last stage, which is all around the editing, the proofreading, and layouting, whatever. So let's call it the post-processing. And this finishes with the submission of your thesis. Well, let's have a look on the different stages in a little bit more detailed way. I said you start with the development of your research idea, of a main idea, and with the preparation. The preparation means the theoretical preparation and the approach that you will take, and also the second, which is here, the proposal writing or the prospectus, how is it is called. Then after submitting your prospectus, you will work out all the part of the literature review. So you will deal with the secondary literature. You will consult the literature to develop a theoretical framework as a fundament for your thesis. And you will also work on your research design. So on the part of the methodology, and you will have to select your tools and to assemble your toolkit for the practical research, which is this fourth part, the data collection and the analysis of your data sets. And then as the fifth part follows all the process of academic writing, the evaluation of your data and the writing of every chapter that you will manage and complete step by step. You will finish this writing process with the discussion chapters, so the discussion of your findings, with the conclusion of your thesis, and with the prospectus, with the prospects, with the future ideas, and then you will get over to the last part, which is the correction of the final manuscript. So all the part of the editing, the proofreading, you have to collect everything for your annex and to provide the tables and figures. You also have to look at the references and assemble your bibliographic information and so on. And last but not least, you arrive at the moment of the submission and of the oral defense, which is some time after you handed the document in. So before we go a little bit deeper into the question of the structure of the different chapters, I would like to present you a little mind map, which unites some essential challenges that you will face during your thesis writing process. So basically, at the moment of writing the thesis, so first you have to craft all the opening part and to provide the thesis statement in relation also to the gap of research. You need to take a position when you write your thesis statement. And well, you also need to pay attention to the sources that you will use. So here, for example, it is very important that you press attention on quotation and on correct quotation. So you have here for example, is a kind of overview on citation styles that you can use. So you have different possibilities. This also is up to your university. You need to be very responsible and accurate with the question of quoting. Why why you have to pay so many attention on this will be a topic which will be discussed in the 5th and in the 14th module. Then you have also to provide the support of your arguments. For example, this is very crucial because you have to rely on examples, you have to rely on other sources to build up a background and a theoretical fundament to support your arguments. And you also have to build connections and relations, for example, to other sources and maybe to theories or to things that you read in the literature. And another thing that is waiting for you, if it comes to the part of the edition and the proofreading, is that you need to press attention on the grammar, also on the academic tone, on the proofreading, so on the question of make your thesis shine in terms of language and also of consciousness. And then you also have to be familiar with the formatting and to have very clear how your department and how your university requires the different parts and the different issues of formatting. We will also discuss this in a later moment. So now I would like to go over to the question of the structure. So how is the structure of a thesis? How should it be, and how is the order of the chapters and of the sections? So as you can see, I divided my figure in 2 parts. So the first is like a general overview on the sections and the chapters and on the general order. And then I have here a second one, which is the body, so the central body of your thesis and the order of the central chapters. So a thesis generally starts with a cover page or a title page. Then follows the thesis or the dissertation abstract, which is a kind of short summary. And as a third point from the opening part, you have the dedication and the acknowledgement. Caution, a dedication is optional, even for a PhD thesis. The acknowledgement, in case of the bachelor thesis and the master thesis, it's a way more optional than in a PhD thesis. A PhD thesis is such an extensive work that the acknowledgements are really required here. Then you can start with a preface, but once more, the preface is optional. And then you have the first real point of the thesis, which is the table of contents or the index. The index is an overview that provides all the titles and subtitles of the different chapters and sections. Generally, you also provide the referring page number, and it can be followed by a list of tables, a list of figures, and even of illustrations. But, well, I put a little star here because the list of tables and figures and illustrations is something that is not necessarily after the table of contents. The place can also be after the references, for example. This is something, well, the concrete order of your thesis is up to your university, to your department or faculty. So before you structure the thesis and you set up everything for the submission, you have to be absolutely sure of what they require, which order they require, and you should inform yourself in advance. That facilitates many things. Then after the table of contents follows the central body of the thesis. So we have the main thesis chapters and the principal sections, which are as the following. It starts with an introduction on your topic, then follows the literature review and the theoretical framework. After this, you need to provide and to explain the approach that you take to create your research design for your project. After this, you go into the analytical chapters, so in the empirical chapters, which is a presentation of your data and also of the analysis. And then you continue with the results and with a discussion of your results, where you need to relate your findings to the literature and to the information that you got from the literature. The finishing point is the conclusion and the prospects. So a discussion of the open questions that can serve as further for further research projects and as a kind of inspiration for other researchers, or even if you like to continue, if you completed a bachelor thesis or a master's thesis and now you want to get deeper into a certain topic, into a certain question, and to continue your work from the thesis you already wrote. So here is the moment where you can already explain some ideas that you may pick up for the next thesis. What is important and a little detail that you should consider from the very start is that the headings and the subheadings have to be consistent. Then at the end of your thesis, you need to provide a list of references that served for you and, well, to create your bibliography. And after this is the right place for the annex or the appendix. Here, well, this is like all the material, a collection of the material that you cannot really put into the main body of your thesis, but that you want to provide to the reader as a kind of additional information, or that also material that is linked to one chapter of your thesis, or that you are referring to in a specific moment that you need or that serves as a kind of evidence, for example. You can also put a list of abbreviations. For example, you can add a list of symbols. If you, for example, if you are doing an analysis of transcription that you prepared and you provide several symbols that the reader needs to know to understand your explanation, then you should add a list of symbols. You can also provide a glossary for the main terms and the essential vocabulary, which is maybe not a part of the common knowledge, and that is also necessary to understand if the reader gets into a certain chapter or into transcriptions, dialogues, whatever. To give you a concrete example, in my own PhD, I provided a glossary because my PhD was about the process of composition between the composers collectives from the famous samba schools from Rio de Janeiro. So, as you imagine, I had a lot of different terms and expressions, not only in Portuguese, but also from this specific field, from this specific area. So it was very important and necessary to provide the reader with some concrete explanation and to provide the signification of certain vocabulary and terms. Otherwise, they won't understand the text. So here, before we will get deeper into the inner structure of the sections, I would like to present you a little overview and to give you an idea about the percentage that every section or chapter of your thesis may take. This is just on the central body. Well, I didn't write nothing about the references because this is a specific part that also differs from thesis to thesis here in relation to the material. But I wanted to give you an overall idea. So I made the calculation on the example of 15,000 words. But this is really just an example. So if you write the introduction of your thesis, then in relation to the 100% calculated with around 10%. The following, the literature review and the theoretical frame, which is your theoretical base and also the fundament for your thesis, should take around 25%. The research design or the methodology, where you explain your methodological approach and also the tools that you plan to apply to conduct your practical research and to conduct also your analysis, should take about 15%. And the part of the evaluation and the analysis of your pure data, where you provide the selection of the data that you achieved that you gathered during your research and that you now need to analyze and to interpret. This takes around 35%. It is followed by the interpretation and the discussion of the findings, which I listed here with around 5%. But attention, I separated the pure data and analysis from the discussion and the interpretation of your findings, but you can also calculate around 40% for all of these. Last but not least, the conclusion and the prospects take more or less the same percentage as the introduction. So at least consists of 10% of your thesis. All together, well, the 10%, then the 25, the 15, the 40, and the 10 will make out 100% of your thesis. Well, now is the moment where I like to provide you with some concrete information on the chapters and also on the content of the different chapters. So, after all, if you, to start with the chapter's structure, all the chapters of your thesis consist of different sections, and every section is split up into paragraphs and contains headings and subheadings. So the headings are basically for the chapters, and the subheadings, well, more to separate the chapters into the different sections. The opening part of your thesis consists of the abstract, which is like a very condensed summary. This is a very important part, because this is basically the part that a reader who wants to know if your thesis is interesting, or even if you apply for a job, then your future director may read the abstract to get like an overall idea, because the abstract contains all of your ideas, statements, and essential crystallized information in a very, very brief and condensed form. Then the acknowledgements are also part of the opening, the dedication and the index. So this is all your opening part. And the opening part leads to the introduction. The introduction contains the, leads to the main subject of your thesis, and as such it names and it explains your topic, your focus, and also your aims and objectives. It makes it very clear which gap you attack, and well, it contains also your thesis statement. So all the information on the topic of your thesis and on the gap of research should get clear from the introduction. This is right. It is like a little overview. Then you will approach to the core of the story, which are the theoretical chapters and then the empirical chapters and discussion chapters. So the theory chapters contain the theoretical base. So the literature review gives an overview, provides an overview on the relevant actual literature. And the theory frame is a kind of selection. So the literature review provides everything that is available from, well, the different approaches, the different debates, and so on. And from all of this stuff, you select the adequate theories and lens and tools that will build your theoretical framework. The theoretical chapters also include the relevant definitions. This is also something special and something important, because the reader have to get a clear idea of the main terms and the main concepts that you apply and what they significate for you. So what is your understanding of these terms and approaches? Then you get into your empirical chapters. So the empirical chapters are mainly focused on the practical research and on the data collection. And yeah, here you explain the approach that you take to conduct a field work, for example, and case studies, and your also your methodology, like how do you approach the generation of data. This can be through the quantitative or qualitative research, and it also includes the criteria of selecting your data, because if you realize a practical research, then at the end you will be there with a amount of data, and you have to select what is really available and what do you want to analyze. And well, this part also includes the analysis and the interpretation of the data that you achieved. The discussion chapters lead into the findings. They lead from the interpretation to the results, and they have the main task to provide answers to the research question that was the start of your thesis. So here is the moment where you need to provide some concrete answers. And not just that, but also to get in dialogue with the theory from the literature review, from the theoretical chapters. So whatever you read, whatever was debated, this is something that you should relate to the findings. Well, and after all, the last part consists of the conclusion, of the prospects, and of the bibliography. The conclusion is a condensed presentation of the most important findings, so of the findings that you want to highlight between all your results to make the contribution of your thesis clear. So what is the contribution, and why is your thesis important? So what was your, how did you fill a certain gap of research? Here you also need, or you can establish new theories or models, or you can also relate and you can refine theories from other authors. This is something that is also, that is not just up to you, but also it also depends to the thesis type that you write. We will get to this point a little bit later. In the part of the prospects, as I already explained, you need to address the limitations of your thesis, because, well, you are at least one person and you write a thesis, but you cannot answer all questions all around the topic that you chose. So here is it important that you suggest some ideas for further research and presenting some new gaps of research and also mentioning the limitations. With these suggestions, you will open new doors for sure. And well, last but not least, the references are the moment to unite all your sources and your references, not just the sources, the secondary literature, but also the sources, the primary sources, for example, that you achieved during your practical research. This is followed by the annex and also the final moment, the end of the thesis. Now I would like to talk a little bit about the formal differences between the thesis types. This is something that I learned from my students as a kind of questions of a question which is frequently asked. What is the difference? So if I write a bachelor thesis, if I write a master thesis and a doctorate thesis, what is similar and what is different? So here I like to start up with first general overview to give you a first idea, and then we will get deeper into it. First, the bachelor thesis is the thesis that you will complete at the end of your graduate studies. For the bachelor thesis, generally you need to submit a proposal. This proposal depends. It is not required in every department, but you should inform yourself if your university requires one or not. The proposal is around 2 to 3 pages, so the extent of this prospectus, and the duration of a bachelor thesis is normally between 5 to 6 months, that you have time to develop and to work on it. And it is guided by a supervisor from your faculty. It generally contains a second part, which will take place after your submission and which will be the oral defense. The master thesis, on the other hand, is the thesis that you submit at the end of your postgraduate studies, so to get postgraduated. The proposal is the extent of the proposal is a little bit larger than the one from the bachelor thesis, so at least calculate 4 to 7 pages, and the duration is also about 6 months. It is also guided by a supervisor from your faculty and finishes with the oral defense, with the second part. And then we have the Ph.D. thesis or the doctorate thesis. This is the highest degree, and it requires immense preparation of the prospectus. So normally you have the duration of around 4-5 years or even more. This is also something that depends to your program. If you have a structured program, or you can even have universities that provide unstructured programs and where you have to work on your own and where you have to discuss all the details with the supervisor, where you don't follow up on a fixed program, but you have like some colloquia or oral examination from time to time, but it is not into a fixed frame of classes and so on. Well, the proposal generally is around 10 or 15 pages. This is also something that is up to your department and to university. So also what I provide here is an orientation, because the departments are dealing with this in a different way. And just one more time to be sure, make sure that you know the requirements and the concrete guidelines from your department. Look it up before to be sure in terms of the extent, of the length, and also in terms of the duration or of certain milestones that you have to complete and whatever. So last but not least, in the United States, the proposal has to be handed in more or less in the 3rd year, and then you start to work on your real thesis. Another question is the choice of the supervisor, because in the moment of a bachelor thesis or a master thesis, normally the supervisor will be named by your faculty and will also be from your faculty. In the case of a doctorate thesis, this can vary. So here you also have to look at the guidelines from the university. But for example, at the university where I completed my PhD, I could choose my first supervisor, and then I also could vote for a second, which was not required to be from the same university, but who could come from another university. For example, I completed my PhD in Weimar, in Germany, at the University of Music Franz Liszt, and the UNESCO Chair for Transcultural Music Studies. So my doctor father is the chairholder of the UNESCO chair, but my second supervisor is from the university in Florianopolis in Brazil, just to give you an idea. And there are also some universities, well, the second part, to say this first, is also normally an oral defense, but there are also some universities who follow up on the old model, which is a rigorosum, which is an oral examination, but yeah, different from the oral defense of where you present your thesis. Yeah, now I just like to say a few words on the scope and to keep it clear how the scope between the thesis can differ. So the scope for a bachelor thesis is around 50 or 60 pages. For a master thesis, it is around 80 or even 100 pages. And the PhD thesis, well, the PhD thesis is the most extensive one with 150 or 200 pages as a minimum, but this can go up, this varies, this depends also to your topic and to the different, to the focus and to the gap that you attack. For example, my own PhD thesis was quite extensive. It had around 600 pages, 650, but this was also a question of different parts. I had a part just dealing with the question of how to write a samba song, about the creative process of composition, and related to this central topic, I had to discuss a lot of contextual stuff, such as a composer's composition and several events that are important, and also influencing the creative decisions. So I really had to attack from different sides, and I had to present also different angles to understand the decisions of the composers. That's why it was like a first part of around 300 pages. A second part, I also had to provide all the translations, for example, from Portuguese to English. So that's why it was a little bit more extensive. But this is not necessary. You can also complete and hand in a PhD thesis with 150 or 200 pages. Yeah, one question which is also often, which I had to deal with in different situations, was the question if the difference between a master thesis, a bachelor thesis, a master thesis, and a PhD thesis is, last but not least, a question of the scope. And I can tell you it is not, because last but not least, the important is the content. The important is the outcome and the contribution. Well, I put a little quotation here just to, to condense it a little bit. Many students believe that the main difference between a bachelor's and a master's or a doctoral thesis is more text. Your thesis is judged on the quality, not on its quantity. So this is what it is in a nutshell. What is important is the outcome. So it is important if your approach fits with your project and with your research. And then it is important, how do you conduct the analysis and the interpretation, and how do you arrive to the results? Which results do you achieve, and how do you sell these results? So yeah, it is basically about the contribution. And another question is, in which case do we speak of a thesis, and how does it differ from a dissertation? Here, well, in theory, you can use both terms for the three thesis types. Yes, as there are many similarities between them, the two terms are often used interchangeable. Right, you saw the structure is very similar, and also the chapters and sections. Well, but in fact, the term dissertation is used more exclusive and specifically for the PhD thesis, which is the culminating work of research and writing to achieve a doctorate degree. I just like to add that originally thesis and dissertation were not interchangeable, but thesis meant the position that a student took during his or her disputation. Well, this was a little warm up for the section which follows now. And here I like to distinguish a little bit and to make very clear what is the characteristic of a bachelor thesis. How does a bachelor thesis differ from a master thesis and from the PhD thesis? So not just in a nutshell, but also in detail. So now you know that the scope is different, that also dissertation is more used for the extensive work of a PhD thesis. But well, in fact, what is expected from you, what characterizes the thesis types? In the case of the bachelor thesis, well, if you work on a bachelor thesis, then for sure you already completed some term papers. But how does the bachelor thesis differ from a term paper? It is your first extended piece of writing, which has to be completed at the end of the graduate studies. Your bachelor thesis is also written on a single subject based on a student's specific field of interest. It narrows a specific topic down and explores in a deeper way than a term paper. So here you will address a certain detail and discuss this, analyze and discuss in depth. And in depth, yeah, in a detailed way, which goes beyond any term paper that you ever wrote. The expectation on a student is independent work, correct citing, this is important, and the ability of combining material from different sources. So you have to show your ability to approach and to find different sources and to work with them, to relate them, to cite them, and well, to to handle them. This is the first degree. So what is expected if you're at the point that you write a master thesis? So how does the master thesis distinguish from the bachelor's? It is also an extended and original piece of research, but completed at the end of your postgraduate studies. It showcases, postgraduate student research and advanced writing skills. And here you have three different qualification and abilities that you need to showcase. First, an advanced ability of data collection, the advanced use of different research methods and tools, and also the advanced source and handling of your sources and literature. What does this mean concretely? So when we talk about advanced skills, what does it exactly mean? First, you have the advanced data collection. Now, let's start with the advanced use of the literature. So you have to read, you have to know how to approach different scientific articles, how to conduct a critical discussion, and how to apply different theories. That's for you need a good and a strong base and a profound background knowledge in your specific area of research. Then you need to prove that you are able to deal with advanced research methods. Which are these methods? Well, you have to apply analytical tools. You also have to apply statistic tools. You have to use different measurement instruments, and you have to know how to conduct different types of interviews, for example. Then, after this theoretical part, you also need to show that you can put this in practice, so that you can not just approach from the theoretical way, but that you also can put everything of this in practice. So you need to show and to conduct the experiments, or in the social science, the empirical data collection. For example, you need to know how to record and to document in the field, how to conduct field works. In the case of the science, it is that you know how to realize experiments and laboratory work. And well, you also need to know how to conduct the interviews and surveys, how to approach the field from different perspectives, and so on. So this is what is meant with advanced approaches. And now we're getting to the top and explore the special challenges of a PhD thesis. When you work on a PhD, then you need to provide, let's start. Well, first, it is also an extended original piece of research, which is after the master thesis, after the post-graduation. It has to be a study on an original question that still hasn't been researched. This is what distinguishes the master from the PhD. So here you are really creating something new. This can mean to refine a theory or to develop and construct new theories or models. This is like the advanced research. And this has to be in-depth and with equal breadth and sophistication in every area of research and academic writing that is part of your thesis. So here you need to present a larger size of samples and knowledge of how to use different measurement instruments, if possible, still more than during the master thesis. You need to present a rich qualitative and quantitative analysis, and you have to relate the research problem with theoretical and conceptual models. Well, finally, I like to sum the differences and the similarities a little bit up and to provide you the basic information at one glance. As you see, yes, there are similarities. For example, if you have a look here on the structure of the thesis, the structure of the thesis is more or less the same. But in the bachelor, you need to present a basic knowledge of how to approach a research topic and a research question. You need to show basic skills of academic writing and research. The bachelor thesis can be based on secondary literature, so it is not necessary to realize a self-conducted research, like a fieldwork, for example. You can also conduct research which is just based on secondary literature, but you have to present the ability of critical thinking, of a critical discussion, and for sure also of the domination of relevant formal requirements, such as correct citing and referencing and formatting and the stuff. For the master thesis, yes, you need some advanced skills and abilities, such as the advanced research and writing skills that I presented. And here it is necessary to guide a self-conducted research. You also have to prove and to show that you are able to approach to the literature in a kind of advanced manner. So you have to approach, you have to use several options and provide a variety of sources and so on. And finally, the PhD is the extended piece of research which has to be made on an original idea, a very new idea, which has to be worked out in a sophisticated way and in depth, that needs to contain a detailed a detailed showcase of case study, for example, or of the experiments in terms of the sample size. It also has an extended length, and here you need to develop new ideas, for example, refining theories, creating completely new models, and so on. So this is what you have to showcase when you want to pass the PhD with success. So we are reaching the end of this first part from the first module. I hope that you have a clear idea of what a thesis is and of the different thesis types, and also of the details that make out the different thesis types. And now we will go over to the second part, which is all around the skills and abilities, not just for the thesis, but also for lifetime. Several good reasons why it is worth a pain to write a thesis. See you there.